Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. You're with JD and Sauerkraut. Yeah, coast to coast. And we have Mr. Robert Eskridge right here and Southern Daze. Robert, thanks for joining us.
Hey, appreciate you having us.
Yeah, we were talking just before we had to take the break about life, kind of in general, what's going on in your life. So,
Yeah,
let's talk a little bit about the band,
cool.
because, they couldn't make it because,
Right.
life goes on.
That's
So
right.
let's talk
Everybody's
about the
got a
boys in the
job.
band. You got to give them a shout out at least.
Absolutely, man. These guys are great, actually. I've played with a couple of these guys for darn near 30 years. So I'll start with the drummer because he is from Paris, Kentucky, just right up the street from us. But I met him in college, actually. He was a baseball player and he was a drummer in the marching band. And we had some mutual friends. And so Kerry Elliott is his name. He's, man, one of the best drummers that you'll ever want to hear. And he's fun. And he says he doesn't like to sing, but he's actually pretty good on harmony. And he'll sing a few songs when asked and whatnot. But such a good guy. And, he's been with me for, man, on and off for 20 years. He was one of the drummers in one of the earlier bands.
Well,
Yeah, he's a good guy. And then we've got a dude who plays bass. You know what's nice about our band, to be honest, Don, is we all kind of play multiple instruments, right? So I play guitar, bass, keyboard, drums, whatever. We can do a little bit of everything. Chris Gordon also is an amazing guitarist, but he's also a pretty good bass player. So he plays bass most of the time in the band, but he's kind of got that AC/DC kind of scratchy, growly. He kills some Credence. Just a really good vocalist, amazing harmonies, great bass player, really good guitarist. And at the end of the day, you start mixing some of these vocals together. You just don't, when you come and see one of our shows, I probably sing 50% of the time, maybe 60. But I've got Chris, I got Carrie, Sam Pollock, who's he's recovering from a recent surgery. But he's same type of thing. He's got an old Les Paul. Dude's been playing 70s rock since he was 16. And he is absolutely an amazing guitarist, but he sings as well. And then Kevin Rollins. Kevin was, man, talking about a country picker. I mean, Brett Mason's great. Kevin Rollins is right in that type of category. Right here in Lexington, Kentucky, we have some amazing musicians. And Kevin, he was on the road with John Michael Montgomery for a while and a few other people doing some tours and made a really great living doing that. And I met him years ago through his sister, who I used to work with, Michelle. And he also sings and does harmony and plays bass and lead guitar, acoustic guitar. And when you start mixing all this together, you get a variety of different tones and different genres and different styles. And our band is quite entertaining. Whenever we played for Saturday night, and one of the people came up mid one of our shows. We do a 3-hour show. We'll play for an hour and a half. Take about 10 minutes, use the bathroom, grab a beer, go shake some hands, kiss some babies, sell some CDs.
always got to do that.
That's right. You got to
That's
pay the
important.
Yep. And they're like, my God, your playlist is awesome. This is something I would listen to on like Pandora or Deezer. I'm like, yeah, we got a pretty good variety of people. And again, it always comes back to you get a nice blend of different folks. And we got a keyboard player because I'm really I'm a quarter. I'm not a keyboardist, if you will, but I can blues it up a little bit. But Frank Conrad, in his earlier days, he had a couple big piano stores down in Nashville, but he was a session player. And he was one of the original keyboard players for the Marshall Tucker Band. And we all live here in Lexington within a stone's throw of one another, other than Chris, who's out in God's country in North Middletown. But man, it's a nice blend. So the band itself, we have fun. Nobody's got egos. If I had on the set list, and I will tell you something that's kind of funny, they get a little bit upset with me sometimes because I'm a firm believer. If somebody yells something out in the crowd, if we knew it kind of halfway, we'll probably try it. And they were more like, we need to practice that. I was like, no, you guys are good enough. We'll figure it out. And nowadays I can take my phone. If I forget a lyric, I remember that now. We'll drop it. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I don't think we've ever had less than probably a 7 on a request. When you think about it, hey, 10 being, hey, that sounded like the record. And on a 7, we kill that. Probably the worst would be a 7. The other night we had this woman request, and she'd requested every time. Neil Diamond, the whatever it is, touching hands.
Caroline. Caroline.
Sweet
Yes.
Caroline.
Sweet Caroline.
We played for like times, and people went crazy. And it was kind of a country version of it. But I tell you what, it freaking rocked. It was pretty good.
That's one good thing about music. You can put your own kind of twist to it,
Yeah.
and it's real good. But, I did have the opportunity to go onto your webpage and actually watch some of your bar action there at some of the local clubs on your Facebook page. And,
right.
Man, you guys actually, you can tell you guys actually having fun. You get some of these superstars and, it's kind of like they just didn't want to come to work tonight sometimes. It's just
it's
like,
true. Yeah,
you guys, and, in the 3 videos I had time to watch, I'm telling you, everybody's smiling, everybody's having a great time. And so is out.
Oh, yeah.
Like your crowds are having a blast.
I love it. You see the guys like thumbs up. So, Sammy, we play a really killer version of Stormy Monday. And Sam is just ripping his face off. And, we were playing in Maysville, Kentucky, doing that same song. And Sam was just shredding his Les Paul. Next thing you know, here comes Kevin with his big Strat. And on Stormy Monday, he takes his fingers and starts doing Eddie Van Halen on Stormy Monday. He plays some raps, right? He's like, oh, my God. Yeah. It was kind of a cool. But those are the type of things that you get with us. You're not going to get exactly the way you heard it on the radio. What you're going to get is our version of what we like to play. And that's why
that's it.
Kind of cool.
So let's talk about your new album.
Yeah.
Because now I'm gonna put you on the spot.
All right.
I want you to play. There you go. Look at that. Put that back up there. Don't be so quick to get it away, man.
That's right.
There you go. Now, this album cover, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Plain, simple, but freaking cool, man. Like, it says a lot.
Yeah, I'm a pretty simple dude, right? I realized a long time ago, stuff doesn't matter. What matters are your relationships, your friends, how you treat people. So life is pretty simple if you boil it down. So the title of the album is Simple Things. It was an interesting way they kind of all came about. And this kind of funnels when the Sina Magowitz Pancreatic Foundation that we support. A year ago, I was up in Boston, and I remember like it was yesterday, this dude stood up, and my wife and I were there. It was a big gala. It was a fundraiser for my real job. And he stood up. He looked pretty frail. And he looked out into the audience, and he says something like, last week I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I was told I have 6 months left to live. What would you do if you only had 6 months? And man, the heaviness of the world hit everybody in that room. And I'm crying because I'm thinking about my kids and the lost time that I probably had, and my wife. We're all just kind of upset. And they sent out these little pieces of paper and said, write down your top things. My wife, obviously, we both put family. Right? We definitely invest time in our family. It's important. Well, my kids, when I'm dead, I want them to know that, hey, Dad was there and he loved you. But at the end, my wife wanted to go to Mexico to this Day of the Dead thing. So we made plans to do that. And my biggest bucket list item was, you know what? I had all this opportunity back in the early days for various reasons. Water under the bridge, can't change it. But I'd like to go back and do the album. I never did. So I picked up the phone and called this dude named Mike Bonagura, who I met. He was big back in the 80s. He and his wife called Bailey and the Boys. Yeah. He was they were a country duo in the 80s and had several #1 hits, but he does some producing down there. And I met him at this gala. And one of the guys that was there, super nice dude, gave me backstage passes to the CMA Awards that year. So I called up Mike and said, here's a set list, here's stuff. I went into my studio here, laid down the vocals, laid down the acoustic. Hey, I'd like to have this type of production. Here's some country licks I think fit here. I go down to Nashville to, Country Q Studios where George Strait did, Pure Country. And Randy, I'm looking at all these gold records on the wall, and I walk in, and within 2 hours, I'm playing with some of the best session musicians in Nashville. And that's how Simple Things kind of came about. We did, I think, 11 songs. I didn't release one of them. I'm saving that one. I got to do some final work. But it was cool. And the experience was awesome.
You were talking about you were writing some new stuff in your time, and you were gonna, you had something that you wanted to share with us. And pick up that stick beside you there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Hold on a second, Don. I'm just trying to do something else to give them. If we could do 5 minutes before we do that.
Yeah,
okay. Well, I guess the engineer says we got to wait 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to fix something here. So just give me 1 minute, okay?
Yeah.
All right. I'll let you do your thing.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, you got to tell me when you're doing changes because I don't know. I know. Now he's going to tell me read your Texas. But anyway, let's just carry on until he does his stuff there, Robert. I want to get back. I want to get back into this Pancreatic Cancer Association.
Yeah, I was going to come back.
You want to throw that name out again?
Yeah, it's called the Sina Magowitz Pancreatic Foundation, and it was spun off of this gentleman named Roger Magowitz. His mother actually passed away from it, and he was a work colleague that I met through the industry stuff. And talking about a salt of the earth guy, I mean, it's a super nice dude. Instead of sitting back and doing nothing, he started this foundation. He started, pretty small, making, 100,000 here, 200,000. This last event, and with just a couple of days, he raised like $1.5–2 million. And he funds and gives all this money, minus some meager expenses that he has on staff, to a company called TGen. TGen has some of the smartest scientists in the world. And being an engineer, I can appreciate the way that they go through the rigor and all the lab experiments and things that are there. And over the course of the last several years, I've been watching these data come back where pancreatic cancer used to be basically a death sentence. Yeah. And they have evolved with the funding, the things that they've been doing with these trials, that they've got patients that have had good quality of life for 5, 10, 15, 20 years because of the trials and stuff that has been coming through the Sina Magowitz Foundation and the fundraising going directly to that particular company. So it's been really cool to watch the progress, but more importantly, just getting the word out that, cures come with money. When you can throw money at a disease, you find ways to solve problems. Breast cancer was the same thing, right? Think about the Susan Komen stuff and the pink pieces that she does. Pancreatic cancer is at that turning point. It's almost at the tipping point of, if you can throw enough money and get the right resources focused, you can solve problems. There's no doubt about it. So this TGen group has been great, and watching and listening, but that's what spurred my desire to kind of go back. And I will tell you a funny story. So we were pushing the album, and I got the promoter, called James, said, "Hey, I need this." And he called me and he goes, "Hey, Robert," he goes, a lot of the stations don't sometimes push independent kind of artists. He said, "Do you have a record label or anything?" I said, "Nope." He goes, "Well, it's going to be maybe tough to get to some of the bigger pieces as we kind of move through this." I said, "No problem." So I was talking to my wife, and you'll love this. She's brilliant. Next thing I know, a day or two later, she comes in. I got a series of documents, and we now own a record label called Bucket List Records, because this was my bucket list. And if you look at some of the tags on some of the charts, it says Robert Eskridge and Southern Daze, and underneath it says Bucket List Records. And so she went and created this company, and now it's good that she did, because, all the streaming revenue and album sales, you got to have some to capture it all. So that's what I never really thought of that, but she went and did that in a heartbeat. And now I send it back to James, and next thing you know, we're spending, 800, 900 times a week, and it just starts snowballing. But yeah, you'll see on the charts, Bucket List Records. And because this was my bucket list, that's kind of how that spun out.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about technologies of today. A guy like you can, sit in a home studio, spin out a record, send it out. Then, you got to do the fine tuning. But,
right.
It's funny that, you just attach a label's name to it, and people want to spin your records, and I'll tell you, like, here, we're more for the independent artist. We're not we're not one of the big guys, that's for sure, with millions of dollars behind us either, but we're not small either. But
sure.
We're coast to coast in Canada, United States, UK, so like we reach a lot of people, but I understand the whole thing. But I got to get back to this cancer thing here, is because the reason I'm so interested in your foundation is because I am myself a cancer survivor.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, I am. So like,
awesome.
when guys like you come in and they have these societies, I had liver cancer, and it went, not caused by any alcoholism or nothing like that. No, guys, don't send me a million emails now.
Right.
I have a disease that it's hereditary. I got it from my parents, obviously, but it's called hematomacrosis. And I don't discrete my iron. It just stores up in my body. So now I'm at the age where it started to attack my organs.
Gotcha.
And I ended up with friggin' liver cancer just out of the blue, right? And in today's technology, 10 years ago, I would have been a dead man. I wouldn't be talking to you today. But in today's technology, here I am, and I'm cancer-free now 2 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for you.
When guys like you come in and they have these special, I want to get it out there. Do you have a website or something they can go to for that?
Yeah. You can go to sinamagowitz.com. Yeah, I'll put it. I'll have to check. I don't know if I have the link. I should probably put it on my webpage because we're really appreciative of the work those guys do. And like I said, having met Roger and some of the people that he has that works with him and been to a couple of his events, he's got a passion for people. And the scientists relate. I mean, they have these amazing personal relationships with their clients that they're working through all these trials. And like I said, it's quite humbling. I pretend to be a smart guy. From time to time, these guys are freaking brilliant. The way that they attack these receptors and all the things that they're doing in these trials, it's incredible. And to have that level of influence to provide a quality of life and extension of life, and that's like a touch of the hand of God. It's really incredible. It really is.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people, like when we talk about charities and stuff like that, like a lot of charities have gotten, let's put a bad name, with misfunding and misspending of their funds and, all that stuff like that. So, like a lot of people are, until something affects them personally in their life, as, cancer does.
Right.
I don't think that people actually take a big look at it until it affects them personally.
You're right.
To get guys like you to come on and talk about it is very important to these organizations. Right? That's it. And
it takes awareness. And just like me as an independent artist, I have to have awareness for people to know that I actually have music out there and have people like yourself to have the platform to get it to them. It's the same thing on these type of foundations. Is number one is that people have to know that, hey, they're working hard and they're making progress. How can we make that progress faster? It comes with funding. Funding becomes something, if you get more people, if people give $1, $2, $10, whatever it is they could do, it all matters. These are organizations that are not got billions of dollars behind them, big pharma. These are small companies that are there to make a difference in a particular problem, and they're laser focused on it. So yeah, anything we can do to get that awareness out there, that's important. Cures come, like I said, they follow money. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. And they don't realize, I think a lot of people don't realize, it's not just a couple of bucks that go into these organizations.
No, that's right.
It costs millions and millions of dollars, and let's face it, these scientists have to make a living. And they got to feed their families. And
the research and the tests and the labs, it all comes with, that's an infrastructure support that has to be there in order to make this stuff happen.
It's really cool. Sometimes, and people don't realize that sometimes, all our experiments and all our testing and everything that we go through ends in a minute if funding stops. And when funding stops, research stops, cures stop. It's that simple.
Life and people stop, right? And it's unfortunate.
So anyway, let's talk a little bit about, we get out of that and that sad stuff. Let's talk a little bit about your family. Let's talk about the missus just a little bit.
We could do the music now if you want.
Oh, just leave me alone now. You left me now. Just leave me alone. I'm on my own schedule.
Now I see he's got the guitar. He's ready to go. He really wants to do that.
You just leave me alone now. I got my own deal happening.
All right. I see where you're going with this. I got it. I know.
You know what I got here? You disappear, and all of a sudden I got your mug back in the screen in the middle of my conversation.
You're welcome.
What's the matter with you? Anyway,
all right.
That's what we were getting to. I was going to get to the happy stuff, talk about the wife, and then get into the album.
Sounds good.
Is that all right, boss?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
You said it was my show. I'm giving you permission.
There you go. Hey, there you go. I got it from Rob. We're doing it my way, Sarko. Got it?
That's right, Elvis. You do it.
That wasn't Elvis that said that was Paul Anka that said we're doing it my way.
Doing it my way. Anyway, let's talk about your wife. I got to talk about your wife because there's a song on this album that you just released that I get requests for each and every day. And I'm telling you, I believe, and I say it every day, that this is going to be the wedding song for 2020-21.
Huh.
Incredible song.
Awesome.
It can't help but, if you're a married guy, bring you back. And I mean bring you back.
Yeah.
When what, you may have not got this feeling because you wrote the damn song for your wife, so you know what you were doing. But to me, it brought back time when I first met her. And me and my wife have been married 36 years. I keep saying 34, and every time I get off the air, I get this look.
Yeah, I resemble that remark.
Yeah, I do. But, it brought me back not only to the good times, but the hard times. And
yeah,
what a song, man. Like, let's talk about that too.
Sure. Yeah, the song is kind of interesting way that, songs come to me in different forms. This one was a pretty interesting way. So we walk around our block here to try to stay somewhat healthy. And we were walking around the corner just up here off of Taste Creek Road. And the sun was coming at a particular angle, and we were holding hands. Right? We're still honeymooners, holding hands. And I looked, and like the shadow of my body, I'm not a small guy. The shadow of my body kind of just engulfed her body. And I was looking, I was like, that's really me there. And as we were walking, I thought, man, that's a shadow that's just walking silently right there beside of me. And so I came back in my notebook and I wrote a shadow that walks silently. And as I started thinking through that song, I thought, man, that's a profound statement. So one of the lines in the song is, my wife, who is this about, is she is the shadow that walks silently beside me. And she's there when I have an ache, when I have a pain, when I have issues, when I'm stressed the hell out, when I just absolutely go off the reservation. She's there to kind of reel me back in. And it kind of starts off with, sometimes in relationships, you do take for granted, whether it be with parents or siblings or your spouse, your partner, you take for granted and you don't tell them every day what you should tell them. And you don't act the way you probably should every day. And so the start of the song is about, hey, I may not tell you what I need to tell you every day, but I need you to know you are my destiny. And I believe that. She's my, it's going to make me cry.
Yeah, don't do that. We're trying to make you happy here, buddy.
I know. But you know what, when you think about it, that's the reality.
And shows that you're human, dude.
Yeah. I mean,
you kind of giving it away. I hope your wife's listening, because
these songs are personal. A lot of the songs that you hear nowadays are personal. I'm not a big fan of the country pop. It's kind of just mainly just how do I get the most plays and make them as party song. I like songs that have meaning, right?
You don't want to get me started. You don't want to get me started on that country pop.
If you can't relate to it, it is just crap, in my opinion.
Well, you don't want to get me started on that country pop.
Yeah.
So Robert, what are your thoughts on Taylor Swift?
Oh, you had to do it, you bugger. You just had
We got to go back to early Taylor. There's sauerkraut. You got to stir it up.
He's got to stir this shit up no matter what he does.
That's right. I got to stir the pot. That's what I do. I'm just here to stir the pot and get Don's blood pressure way up through the roof every time.
He had to mention. I got to agree with Robert. Let's go back to the early Taylor.
Yeah, early Taylor was good.
And then all of a sudden, you know what? And I don't even believe it's Taylor. I believe that the record label's got a hold of her and marketed her in two different genres. Yeah. And obviously the pop thing is playing on both sets of the field here now. Country, pop music is all the same. Like I said, we do this in our morning meetings every day about, what we're going to play on what station. And we have 3 stations here. I don't know if you know that. We got Access Country, Access Rock, and Access Pop and 40.
Right.
But half of the stuff that's on my playlist today is on the pop station too.
Yeah.
So, I have this ongoing feud, not with Taylor in general, but she just is an easy target because she's so big and she's so flamboyant about it.
Right.
And there's other things that drive me nuts about it. Okay. Growing up in this kind of industry and, kind of looking at it back, country folk and country music people don't act the way people are acting today.
No.
We don't get on the limelight and sneak out in suitcases and, have these open online feuds with people. It's not what country music represents. But in the same light, the folks of Taylor and there, some of the others have brought a new generation to country music that wouldn't be here without them. So
No,
I've got
that's
to kind of,
true.
so, and it was this moron on the other side of this picture here that told me that and said, listen, how many people would not be listening to country music today if it weren't for country artists like Taylor Swift? And he
That's
was
right.
right.
And you can give her some props too for kind of going against the grain on the big labels, right? When they pushed against her music, you're not doing this. She was one of the first ones to push back. I mean, Apple was doing some things on iTunes and stuff that probably wasn't kosher. And she was one of the primary people that were outspoken and really enraged that she did something about it. And she basically said, look, I got a big bass. If you don't straighten up, you can't play my stuff. So good for her. I mean, I do think she went a little too far into the pop world, but her early stuff was good. I think she probably has the right directional element from an artist perspective, but I do think sometimes you do get heavily influenced by labels and industry execs, and I want you to do this to get, generate sales. I mean, it's at the end of the day.
Whereas that's what it's all about. It's no different with.
Yeah.
And it's all
her early days, she was all about the music for sure.
Yeah, when she came out like with Tim McGraw. The songs like, I mean, like stuff like that. And it's a shame because, she would have kept going in that. Well, I don't know if it's a shame, but, the people that she's brought.
I don't mind the crossover to some
degree.
I
don't mind it either.
Some of the pop, but it does open up people to, hey, if they go listen to Taylor Swift, she has dragged along some percentage of those people to a more traditional sound because that's also part of her DNA.
What about the country rap? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, don't get me started.
Like, what are you doing, sauerkraut? Like, are you just trying to piss off my guest now or what?
I just wanted to see if he thought the same thing like Rob George said that's it. Yeah.
I'm going to start picking on your haircut in a minute.
Hey. This is quarantine style at its best.
Yeah. Clippers right here. I got clippers.
Yeah. I'll have to get my way to Kentucky to get you to cut my hair there.
I'm lucky. I don't have any friggin' hair, so it don't matter.
Yeah. When I was in college, we were on the second floor of this dorm, and I had clippers because, I mean, you had to have beer money in college, and so I found out that getting a haircut was $10.
You just made me spit my damn coffee up.
I'm telling you, a pair of wall clippers was $15 at Walmart. So I went and bought a pair of $15 clippers, and you could get these guards, and I put in my head, and I just buzzed my head until I didn't get to any more clippings. And then I realized that I wasn't the only one who needed beer money. And so I would charge in our trash room on the second floor, everybody a $5 haircut, and I knew short, real short, and shave. And so I would make like 20 or $30 a week, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I tell you what, back then when you could get beer money like $7 or $8, man,
that's beer money for sure.
Yeah.
I was the man on that dorm room.
Especially in the States. In Canada, that will buy you one beer, but in the States, that'll get you a case.
Yeah, but you only need 3 of Canadian beer to get drunk.
Yeah, that's probably true. And then somebody had, we weren't old enough to get it, and this is terrible. I would never want my kids to know this, but we would drive an hour to this place called Aberdeen, Ohio. You could go into Ohio, and this dude had like a bootleg barn. You could drive through, honk your horn a certain number of times. He'd come out, and you drove through the other side. You paid him, he'd load your beer in your trunk, and you drove away. So somebody, we rock, paper, scissors, draw straws, whatever it was. Somebody was making a beer run about every Sunday because we needed to have that.
Who's going out of state for beer today, guys?
That's right.
Robert's sitting in the back. Robert's sitting in the background. I can't. I'm tuning my guitar. Just right.
Oh, people, somebody's got to go.
That's cool. It just, growing up, did you play country music as a kid? Like, what was your influences in music?
I tell you what, somebody asked me this question Saturday night, actually. I grew up on Johnny Cash. I grew up on Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings. I grew up on AC/DC. Yeah. I grew up on Billy Joel. So I had a pretty wide variety. I really grew up on old country, if you will, Hank Williams Sr. I remember the first album, I had three big influences. The first album that I ever bought was Billy Joel Glass Houses. And we cover some of the songs on that, kind of a country style, like You May Be Right and some other things. My second album, I mowed grass like a bastard one summer because I had a new record player. And my mom went up by it for me. And this was back when we went to Finger Hut days. I don't know if you guys had Finger Hut in Canada. But man, I this catalog, I was like, man, I got to have this new turntable because I need this and this and this. So I mowed grass forever. So I bought my own turntable and I bought AC/DC high voltage. And that's how I started getting into the rock side. And then my third album that I bought almost instantaneously was Hank Williams Sr.'s Greatest Hits. And it was a bifolded white album with a big bust of Hank Williams Sr. on front. And man, I sat and I learned every funky chicken picking steel bend. And back then, you know, country music was very simple. So the guitar licks were simple and everything. You know, we've made it a lot more sophisticated with all the crap that we do now. But man, I learned all those old songs.
Well, when you're talking about Hank Williams Sr., the first album, you know, and you're the same age I am, you know, I checked your bio. You're a couple of years younger, not much, but you know, like to say that Hank Williams Sr. was a big influence in your music. So, you know, like he was a little before your time though, you know, really, it's more like your parents' time. It's more like your mom and dad's time.
It was my papa, my grandfather. So when I was a kid, I went to live with my grandparents, actually. You know, my dad was, it was rough. It was a nice way to say it. But at the end of the day, I went, and my pop-up listened to all that kind of stuff. Him and my grandmother, man, we'd ride around this old Ford pickup truck. My grandfather was a beer-drinking country music listening dude. We would go and sit and just talk about life, and he would give me advice, and, hey, I want you to do this, and, hey, when this happens, you don't do that. Man, he was just a wonderful person. He gave me great life lessons. But that's where those 8 tracks I'll never forget. He had Hank Williams. He had Charlie Pride, Buddy Rich. I mean, we listened to all this. He had this big like alligator case in the bottom of his floorboard of his truck that 8-track cassette tapes like all over the place. And that's what I did.
No, I don't usually talk politics here, and I'm not going to talk specifics politics, but I want to ask you, like, is there any fear in your community of what's going on down in the U.S. right now?
You know, I tell you, if you pulled up Lexington, Kentucky, or Kentucky in general, I would give our governor, Andy Beshear, a lot of props. This whole virus thing he handled very eloquently, with some class and some compassion, some empathy for people, which I don't see in a lot of politicians today. And he managed this thing crazily, and people didn't like it. But if you go look at the data, because I'm a data guy, we were one of 2 states that actually met the requirements for reopening, and he did a really good job. I would also say, you know, Kentucky's kind of known for hillbilly, kind of redneck type stuff, but we're actually pretty damn good people. And what I've seen in the state of Kentucky, although Louisville got a little crazy the other night, for the most part, we've had pretty peaceful protests. I think people have, I watched the other night, some of our police officers got down on the knee and participated and walked with protesters, right? Where I see other communities, they're standing there with their batons beating people back. Our police are walking hand in hand because we believe that you should have the ability to have your amendment honored. And they're there to keep the peace, but at the end of the day, they're also people. Right? They also are affected by the same stuff that we are. And it was good to see that. I tell you, I think, you know, I said this to you when we met the first time. I'm an educated redneck. Man, you want me on your team if you're in a bar fight, but if you had a math problem, you want to copy my homework. That's the way that it worked. At the end of the day,
how are we doing for commercial time there, Sargo?